The name of the poem I'm reading to you today is called The Gift in Your Grief Journey, and it's by John O'Donohue. When your eyes freeze behind the gray window and the ghost of loss gets into you, may a flock of colors, indigo, green, red, and azure blue, come to awaken in you a meadow of delight.
Very nice. Thank you, Deborah. You're up. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce Audrey Pondek, if you don't know her. She's Stephen's daughter. And here she goes. What are you going to do for us?
All of you are here because Steve Pondek was a small, medium, or large part of your life. You may know some about him or a lot. Regardless of where you stand on the spectrum of Stevenomics, I'd like to tell you about his life. Steve Pondek was born in Lee Summit, Missouri on October 4th, 1956. He grew up in Severna Park, Maryland with his parents, Lucy and Tom, and his brothers, Jim and Jeff. He was a skinny hooligan that tooled around with his hooligan friends, played tennis, and jammed to the beats of Joni Mitchell, Jimi Hendrix, and the Beatles. After high school, he went on to study biology at Virginia Tech and then moved to Puerto Rico to study medicine in Cayey, where he met our mom, Sharon. They spent 2 years there learning about anatomy and complex, gross things in Spanish, and then moved to New Jersey to finish their MDs at Rutgers. After residency, he took up emergency medicine to rack up a very hefty inventory of gory stories that he would pull out at very opportune times, like meals. After the ER days, he pivoted to family medicine, ultimately landing a job at Johns Hopkins in 1991, where he would spend the rest of his career. It was always so clear how much his work mattered to him. He'd come home every evening so spent, you knew he had left it all in the field. He was so incredibly proud to be a part of the Hopkins community. His esteemed colleagues energized and inspired him. A person's career is a huge part of who they are just by virtue of how much time they must spend working to earn a living. But Steve Pondek was so much more than a doctor. Medicine was not his only talent. As I've been reflecting on his life since he passed, this wonderful thread of creativity has shimmered through my memories. On top of being a doctor, my dad was a multidisciplinary creative. Back in his early 20s, he got into filmmaking, producing 2 smash hits, The Edge and I Love My Jazz, But Oh You Squid. And in Oh You Squid, he performs a brain transplant to relieve a patient from their lack of vibe. When John and I were kids, he wrote a book, a medical mystery thriller called The Jaguar Prefix, in his spare time. And around the same time, he took up cabinetry and built a slew of window seats and built-in shelves that, according to my Zillow sleuthing, still stand. He was a very silly artist with an elegant and simple drawing style, which mainly revealed itself in countertop notes or letters where he'd add a sci-fi monster somewhere on the page. He was a dedicated and enthusiastic gardener with a love of English cottage-style planting, Japanese maples, and Yoshino cherries. He didn't fuss over his garden beds. He experimented and schemed how to defeat his arch nemesis, the white-tailed deer. The gardens he created over time grew to feel like cozy rooms, little leafy nooks you could sit within and relax. He was also a skilled piano and guitar player. His ear was incredibly sharp. All he needed was to hear a song and he could figure out how to play it. When he was in a particularly goofy mood, he would sing improv blues songs. He was an unbelievable cook. I could have made this entire eulogy about his cooking. Clams Casino, cassoulet on a snowy evening, red wine plum sauce that takes a day to make, sherry chicken with mushrooms, the best Caesar salad dressing on earth, and quadruple batches of New York Times brownies to get just the right height. He made it all with love and gusto. If he heard you liked something he cooked, he would always make sure to have ingredients ready for when you were around. When my dad wasn't caring for people, he was creating things, but he didn't pigeonhole himself into one discipline. He was always playing, expanding, and learning. I have some takeaways from the creative life and times of Steve Pondek. 1, don't be afraid to learn a new skill. We can all keep expanding our capabilities to become joyous, multifaceted humans. 2, experiment and play. We don't have to be serious all the time, and our identities aren't bound by our day jobs. 3, you can be so many different things in your lifetime for as little or as long as you want. 4, the world is a richer place when we let loose and create from our hearts, whatever our medium is. In closing, as Mary Oliver says in her poem, The Leaf and the Cloud, be good-natured and untidy in your exuberance. This is exactly how my dad lived his life.
Program, so we just want to make sure we get the order right. This guitar is not in. I am, Steve is my father-in-law, was my father-in-law, and I love everybody here, and so did Steve. And sorry to the cheap seats. No, it's not an electric guitar. No, I'm good. Thank you. Day one stone. It was beautiful. stung from the ground. And the night she fell, the air was beautiful. The night she fell,